the presentation that started it all. The massive crystal chamber of the Galactic Security Council buzzed with quiet conversation as representatives from 47 different species took their seats. Ambassador Sarah Chen adjusted her simple blue suit and checked her presentation tablet one final time. She was the youngest human ever to address the council, and today she would present Earth's defense strategy to the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Chairman Vorthak, a towering reptilian creature with silver scales and 4 arms, called the session to order. His voice echoed through the chamber with authority built over 3 centuries of leadership. We gather today to evaluate Earth's petition for inclusion in the Galactic Defense Network. Ambassador Chen, you may begin. Sarah stood and walked to the center of the chamber. Around her, alien eyes watched with varying degrees of interest and skepticism. The humans were newcomers to galactic society, having achieved faster-than-light travel only 50 years ago. Most species here had been spacefaring for thousands of years. Honored council members, Sarah began, her voice steady despite the magnitude of the moment, I present Earth's Comprehensive Planetary Defense Initiative, which we call the Harmony Protocol. A holographic display materialized above her head, showing Earth surrounded by what appeared to be communication satellites and cultural broadcast stations. Murmurs of confusion rippled through the assembled delegates. Our primary defense mechanism, Sarah continued, is based on what we call active cultural integration. Instead of building weapons or shields, we have invested in understanding and communicating with all forms of life we encounter. Representative Xyloth from the Crystalline Collective made a sound that translated as laughter. Ambassador, are you suggesting that you plan to defend your world through conversation? Sarah smiled politely. In essence, yes. Our research indicates that most conflicts arise from misunderstanding and fear of the unknown. By actively sharing our culture and learning about others, we create bonds that make violence unnecessary. The chamber erupted in poorly concealed amusement. Representative Craxon, whose species had survived 3 galactic wars, leaned forward, with obvious disbelief. Young human, the galaxy contains species that view other life forms as nothing more than resources to be consumed. How do you propose to befriend beings whose very nature is destruction? We believe that every species has the capacity for growth and change, Sarah replied, advancing to her next slide, which showed Earth's cultural broadcast network. Our satellites continuously transmit music, art, literature, and educational content throughout our sector of space. We've already established communication with 16 previously unknown species using this method. Chairman Vorthak's massive head tilted slightly. And if these cultural broadcasts fail to deter aggressors? Sarah's expression remained calm and confident. Then we move to Phase 2 of the Harmony Protocol, which involves direct cultural exchange. We invite potential aggressors to Earth for festivals, sporting events, and educational programs. Our studies show that beings who experience our hospitality directly are 94% less likely to engage in hostile actions. The laughter was no longer concealed. Several representatives were openly chuckling at what they perceived as human naivety. Senator Vexhai from the Warforged Alliance shook his mechanical head. Ambassador Chen, your species' optimism is admirable but dangerously misguided. The galaxy is not a place where friendship conquers all. I understand your skepticism, Sarah acknowledged, but I'd like to share some results from our preliminary trials. The holographic display changed to show statistical data and video footage of various alien species participating in what appeared to be Earth cultural events. These are representatives from species initially classified as hostile by other galactic powers. After participating in our cultural exchange programs, they not only ceased aggressive activities but became active partners in regional peacekeeping efforts. Representative Thane from the Military Supremacy Coalition leaned back in his seat, clearly unimpressed. And what happens when you encounter the Devourers? What happens when beings arrive whose only purpose is to consume entire worlds? Will you invite them to a music concert? The mention of the Devourers silenced the chamber. They were a nomadic species that had destroyed dozens of worlds, consuming all biological matter they encountered. No amount of diplomacy had ever worked with them. Sarah paused for a moment, and for the first time, something flickered in her eyes. The Devourers represent a unique challenge, but even they are not beyond the reach of understanding. Our xenobiologists have been studying their patterns and believe that their behavior stems from a fundamental misunderstanding of how to obtain the resources they need. "You cannot be serious," growled Commander Wraith, whose own world had barely survived a Devourer attack. "These beings have never shown mercy, never demonstrated any capacity for communication beyond demands for surrender. Which is why," Sarah said, her voice taking on a more serious tone, "Earth has developed what we call the Ultimate Harmony Protocol. If all other peaceful measures fail, we are prepared to implement the most comprehensive cultural integration program ever conceived." She advanced to her final slide, which showed a complex network of installations across Earth and its moon. This system can broadcast our complete cultural database directly into the neural patterns of any species within range. It's designed to create immediate empathy and understanding, even in beings previously thought incapable of such emotions. The chamber fell silent. The technology Sarah was describing was beyond anything the Council had seen. Chairman Vorthak leaned forward, his massive frame casting a shadow over the human ambassador. "You claim to possess the ability to alter the fundamental nature of hostile species?" "We prefer to think of it as revealing their true nature," Sarah replied. "Every being is capable of connection and understanding. Sometimes they just need help remembering that." At that moment, alarms began blaring throughout the chamber. Emergency lights bathed the crystal walls in red as automated systems announced an incoming priority message. Chairman Vorthak activated the chamber's main communication array, and the face of Admiral Kethra from the Outer Rim Defense Force appeared. "Council members," the Admiral's voice was tense with urgency, "we have a massive Devourer fleet moving through Sector 7. Their trajectory suggests they're heading directly for the Sol system. Estimated arrival time, 72 hours. The chamber exploded into activity as representatives began shouting orders and demands. Sarah Chen stood quietly in the center of the chaos, her expression unchanged. Chairman Vorthak's 4 arms gestured for silence, and gradually the noise subsided. "Ambassador Chen," he said, his voice carrying a mixture of curiosity and concern, "it appears your theories are about to be tested under the most extreme circumstances possible. Does Earth require immediate military assistance?" Sarah shook her head. "Thank you for the offer, Chairman, but we believe this situation calls for the activation of our Harmony Protocol. We formally request that the Council observe our response methods for evaluation purposes." Representative Craxon stood abruptly. "You cannot be serious. The Devourers have consumed 43 worlds. They show no mercy, accept no surrender, and demonstrate no capacity for reasoning. You will be signing your species' death warrant." "Perhaps," Sarah acknowledged. "But if our methods succeed, we will have proven that there is always another way. And if we fail—" She paused, looking around the chamber at the assembled beings who represented the sum of galactic civilization. "If we fail, then at least we will have tried to solve this threat through understanding rather than violence." Chairman Vorthak was quiet for a long moment, studying the young human ambassador. Finally he spoke. "The Council will observe your response to the Devourer threat. However, we will maintain defense fleets at the edge of your system, ready to intervene if your methods prove unsuccessful." "That's all we ask," Sarah replied with a slight bow. As the emergency session concluded and representatives hurried to contact their homeworlds, Sarah gathered her materials and prepared to leave. Dr. Marcus Kane, Earth's chief strategic advisor, emerged from the observer section where he had been watching silently. "That went well," he said quietly as they walked toward the exit. Sarah glanced at him with a small smile. "They think we're naive idealists playing with forces beyond our understanding." "Good," Dr. Kane replied, his eyes carrying a depth that suggested there was much more to Earth's strategy than had been revealed. "Let them keep thinking that. It makes the next 72 hours much more interesting." As they left the crystal chamber, Neither the council members nor the departing. Humans noticed the subtle activation of monitoring systems throughout the Galactic Security Council building. Earth's cultural broadcast network had been active since the moment Sarah began her presentation, quietly analyzing the neural patterns and psychological profiles of every being in the chamber. The Harmony Protocol was already in effect, and it was far more sophisticated than anyone realized. Outside the chamber, in the depths of space, long-range sensors detected movement as hidden installations throughout Earth's solar system began powering up systems that had remained dormant for decades. The Devourers were coming, and humanity was ready to show the galaxy what their friendship protocols could really do. The next 72 hours would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever, and it would all begin with what the Council believed was humanity's greatest weakness, their unwavering belief that every problem could be solved through understanding and connection. They were about to learn that they were both completely right and utterly wrong about human nature. When laughter turned to awe 70 hours after Ambassador Sarah Chen's presentation, the Devourer fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system. 300 massive bioships, each one pulsing with dark energy and bristling with consumption pods, formed a perfect sphere around the small blue planet that had dared to challenge their nature. Aboard the lead vessel, Hivemind Prime experienced something it had never felt before: curiosity. For 10,000 years, the Devourers had consumed worlds without question. They arrived, they fed, they moved on. But as they approached this system, something was different. Strange signals were penetrating their collective consciousness, carrying patterns of thought and emotion they had never encountered. Interesting, the hive mind whispered through a million mouths across the fleet. These creatures broadcast their essence freely. How unusual. On Earth, in the hidden command center beneath the Swiss Alps, Dr. Marcus Kane monitored the approaching fleet through sensors that were far more advanced than anything the Galactic Council suspected humans possessed. Sarah Chen stood beside him, no longer the nervous diplomat from 3 days ago. Her eyes held a steely determination that spoke of careful planning and absolute confidence. "Broadcasting at full strength?" Sarah asked. "All cultural transmission arrays are active," confirmed Dr. Elena Vasquez, Earth's chief xenopsychologist. "We're hitting them with everything: music, art, literature, philosophy, comedy, drama, and most importantly, human emotional patterns. Their hive mind is trying to process it all simultaneously." Dr. Kane smiled grimly. 70 years of secret research into consciousness manipulation, and they think we're just trying to be friends. The Galactic Council observation fleet maintained position at the edge of the system, their sensors locked onto both the Devourer ships and Earth's surprisingly calm response. Chairman Vorthak watched the tactical displays with growing confusion. The human planet showed no signs of panic, no military mobilization, no defensive preparations of any kind. "Admiral Kethra," he contacted the Outer Rim Defense Force commander, "are you detecting any military activity from Earth?" "None, Chairman. They appear to be increasing their cultural broadcasts. But that's all. No weapons charging, no shields activating, no defensive fleet deployment." Representative Craxon shook his head in disgust. "They're actually going to try to talk to the Devourers. This will be the shortest planetary defense in galactic history. The first Devourer scout ships reached Earth's outer atmosphere, their consumption pods opening like hungry mouths. But instead of immediately beginning their feeding process, they hesitated. The strange signals from the planet below were intensifying, and something unprecedented was happening to their collective consciousness. Individual thoughts began to emerge. For the first time in millennia, individual Devourer entities started to separate from the hive mind, experiencing personal awareness. They felt emotions they had no names for: wonder, sadness, joy, love. Human art and music resonated through their biomechanical brains, awakening dormant neural pathways that had been suppressed by the collective for countless generations. What is happening to us?" one scout ship pilot whispered, using a voice that had been silent for 3,000 years. On Earth, Dr. Vasquez monitored the neural feedback with growing excitement. "It's working. Their individual consciousness patterns are reasserting themselves. The hive mind's control is fragmenting. But Dr. Kane's expression remained serious. That's just phase 1. The real test comes now. The hive mind prime, sensing the disruption in its collective, sent a massive pulse of control energy through the fleet, attempting to reassert dominance over the awakening individuals. The bioships shuddered as two forces warred within each devourer consciousness: their natural individual awareness and the artificial collective that had controlled them for so long. Initiating phase 2, Sarah announced, her finger hovering over a control that would change the nature of the broadcast entirely. Suddenly, the cultural transmissions stopped. For a moment, space around Earth fell silent. Then, new signals began, broadcasting, not just to the devourers, but to every ship in the system, including the Galactic Council observers. But these weren't cultural programs. These were direct neural interfaces, designed to create immediate empathy connections between species. The technology was beyond anything the galaxy had seen, based on decades of secret research into consciousness itself. Every being in the system suddenly experienced a moment of perfect understanding. They felt what it was like to be human, the drive to explore, to create, to protect what they loved. They felt the weight of human history, the struggles and triumphs that had shaped the species. But most importantly, they felt humanity's absolute conviction that every thinking being deserved freedom and choice. The Devourer's collective scream echoed across subspace as 10,000 years of artificial control shattered in an instant. Across the fleet, individual consciousness exploded back into existence like stars being born. They remembered who they had been before the hive mind consumed their identities. They remembered their original homeworld, their families, their dreams. I remember my name, whispered a Devourer commander, tears streaming down a face that hadn't shown emotion in centuries. I am Zethkar. I had children once. Chairman Vorthak staggered in his command chair as the empathy wave hit the Council observation fleet. For a brief moment, he experienced consciousness as humans did, not as a single powerful entity, but as billions of individuals choosing to work together. The beauty and strength of it overwhelmed him. By the void, he whispered. They weren't trying to befriend the Devourers. They were trying to free them, but the revelation was far from over. As the Devourer fleet hung motionless in space, their crews struggling to remember how to exist as individuals, new contacts appeared on every sensor in the system. Ships began dropping out of stealth fields around Earth, not human ships, but vessels from dozens of different species. What is this? Representative Thane demanded as his scanners identified impossible readings. Those are crystalline collective warships, and war-forged alliance dreadnoughts, and, by the stars, are those Void Walker stealth frigates? On Earth? Sarah smiled for the first time in 3 days. Did you really think we spent 50 years in galactic society just making friends? The hidden fleet was massive. Every species that had participated in Earth's cultural exchange programs over the past decades had secretly contributed ships and crews. But these weren't the vessels they had officially reported to their governments. These were ships equipped with hybrid technology, combinations of each species' greatest innovations, unified under human tactical coordination. Dr. Kane opened a communication channel that reached every ship in the system. This is Dr. Marcus Kane of Earth Strategic Command. For 50 years, humanity has been building not just friendships, but a true alliance based on mutual respect and shared purpose. Every species you see here chose to work with us not because we forced them, but because we showed them a better way to approach galactic civilization. A crystalline collective captain appeared on screen, his geometric features glowing with excitement. The humans didn't just invite us to festivals and cultural events. They shared their technology, their strategic thinking, their belief that cooperation is stronger than domination. Together, we've built something the galaxy has never seen before. The war-forged Alliance ships powered up weapon systems that made the Council observers' sensors scream warnings. But these weren't the crude plasma cannons and kinetic bombardment systems the war-forged were known for. These were weapons that combined human innovation with war-forged engineering, Adaptive energy systems that could be reconfigured in real time for any threat. Impossible, breathed Admiral Kethra. Those weapon signatures, they're completely beyond our understanding. Sarah's voice carried across all communication channels with quiet authority. The Galactic Council has spent centuries believing that strength comes from individual power and military might, but humanity has proven something different. True, strength comes from willing cooperation between free individuals. In the depths of space, the liberated devourers were making a choice. Their individual consciousness restored, they faced a decision their species hadn't made in 10 millennia. What to do with their freedom. Former hive mind Prime, now simply calling himself by his forgotten birth name of Veltar, opened a communication channel to Earth. His voice, speaking for the first time as an individual, carried the weight of incredible gratitude and shame. Humans of Earth, he said, we remember now what we once were, before the collective took our minds. We were explorers, scientists, artists. We became devourers because we forgot how to be anything else. You have given us back ourselves, Hiwai paused, looking around at his fleet of awakened beings. We wish to ask, how do we become who we were meant to be again? Dr. Kane's response was immediate and warm. The same way every species does, Veltar. One choice at a time, surrounded by friends who believe in your potential. Chairman Vorthak found his voice at last, though it shook with the implications of what he had witnessed. Ambassador Chen, your species has just demonstrated capabilities that revolutionize our understanding of both warfare and diplomacy. How long have you been planning this? Sarah's expression softened slightly. Since the day we first encountered the Galactic Council, Chairman. We realized that the galaxy was trapped in cycles of conflict because everyone believed that force was the only true power. We decided to prove them wrong. She gestured toward the mixed fleet surrounding Earth. Every species you see here maintained their official allegiances and continued their normal governmental functions. But they also chose to participate in something greater, a network of cooperation based on genuine friendship and mutual benefit. Representative Kraxon was studying his tactical displays with growing amazement. The technology integration alone should have taken centuries. How did you coordinate development across dozens of species without our intelligence networks detecting it? Dr. Kane chuckled. Because you were looking for military buildups and secret weapons. You weren't looking for cooking classes, art exhibitions, and scientific symposiums. Every cultural exchange was also a technology sharing session. Every friendship festival was also a strategic planning meeting. The former devourers were already beginning to integrate with the Allied fleet. Their bioships' consumption pods transforming into research laboratories and communication arrays. Freed from the compulsion to consume, they were rediscovering their original nature as some of the galaxy's most brilliant scientists and engineers. Veltar's voice came across the communication channels again, filled with wonder. Our biotechnology, combined with human adaptive systems and crystalline collective processing power, we could solve problems that have plagued the galaxy for millennia. Chairman Vorthak made a decision that would reshape galactic politics. Ambassador Chen, Earth's petition for inclusion in the Galactic Defense Network is not only approved, but would humanity consider a seat on the Security Council? As permanent members? Sarah exchanged glances with Dr. Kane, then smiled. We would be honored, Chairman. But we should mention, this isn't actually Earth's defense network. This is just our local friendship circle. The silence that followed was profound. Finally, Representative Thane managed to speak. Just your local network? Dr. Kane nodded cheerfully. Oh yes, this represents our relationships within about 50 light-years of Earth. Our actual defense network, well, that involves species from across the galaxy. Did you really think we limited our friendship efforts to just this sector? As the implications of that statement sank in, emergency communication alerts began flooding in from across the galaxy. Reports were arriving of similar cultural exchange fleets revealing themselves in hundreds of systems, all coordinated through Earth's hidden network of genuine cooperation and shared technology. The galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had done something no species had managed in millions of years of galactic civilization. They had proven that true strength came not from the ability to destroy, but from the wisdom to inspire others to be their best selves. And the greatest joke of all was that they had done it exactly the way they said they would, through friendship, understanding, and cultural exchange. They just hadn't mentioned that their version of friendship involved revolutionary technology sharing and coordinated strategic planning on a galactic scale. The Galactic Council had laughed at Earth's naive belief in the power of friendship. They weren't laughing anymore.